Right, 15 June 2021, and I'm joined by my regular guest, Dr. Feddious Mutenheri. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. How are you, Gambakwe? I long told you it would be academic dishonesty if I could, if you continue to call me doctor. But anyway, in 2 months, that should be done.
Fantastic. So today we want to start with a news update. South Africa has been placed on level 3 lockdown. The president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has just announced because we have a serious situation in South Africa. There are 7,500 new infections a day of coronavirus. So we have a very, very serious problem. And you know what happens? If in South Africa they start having COVID, when it hits Zimbabwe, it hits very, very hard. We have learned from the past, from what happened in December, and I'm sure that Zimbabwe is going to follow soon with a big, big response. So, doctor, I think this is connected to what we want to discuss today. The demolitions in Harare. Are they connected to COVID?
Thank you very much, and I want to greet all your viewers around the world. Well, I think, in my opinion, the demolitions are not at all connected to COVID-19. For me, I always see a historical trail of the philosophy of us, particularly the demolitions. When it is election season in Zimbabwe, these are common occurrences. I want to take you back to 2005 with Operation Murambachina, which was clearly a political gimmick from all analysts and people who viewed it as happening, and even those who faced it. You'd realize that the MDC had largely won in urban cities, and we saw something similar to what is happening today. And when I look at the current demolitions, I am not at all surprised that there seems to be a trail of a political, kind of action by those in power. Probably you would ask me further, but you remember last year during lockdown again, we saw something in April, something almost similar. And this is pre-election season, remember, going into 2023. And there is a lot of jostling we can see amongst political parties. And I do not want to think that this is separate from what we have seen over the years.
Okay, but let's look at the, the current demolitions. Firstly, they're demolishing car cells on the side of the road. They're also demolishing them at the Mbudzi roundabout. There was a lot of activities taking place there. Is that political?
Gambakwe, I don't want you to narrow it down to those spaces where you have seen demolitions happening, whether it's at Mbudzi, whether it's at car washes or car sales on the side of the roads. Yes, when we have this discussion, we must look at it in a very balanced way, in that I think we cannot condone unlawful acts by citizens, especially where they occupy illegal spaces. But probably it will help us to look at how did we get here? How did we get where we are? Zimbabwe basically has become a vending economy or a vendor economy, whichever way you want to talk about. And what has led us to this? 90% of Zimbabweans actually, according to reports, are vendors. And this has been a trail. This has been I mean, there is something that led us to here, if to where we are here. And in as much as we do not condone people locating or putting businesses in illegal spaces, but one has to look at the fact that Zimbabwean economy at present is dysfunctional, and everybody, including those who are, I mean, young graduates, including those people who could be in formal work, they have been forced to be vendors, and there is no clear roadmap by government to create employment for these people, and hence where we are, hence people trying to make a living. And so, without really basing on legality of what is happening, but let's look at why we are here and what the government can do to make sure that they correct this situation without necessarily putting the people into more misery. Because look here, Zimbabwe is impoverished at the moment, and the only way out is to go out and vend.
Okay, so now let's go to the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And I want us to answer the question on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Should the demolitions continue? Should another solution be found? Because obviously the people cannot be allowed to have their car parks on the side of the road or to fill up Mbudzi roundabout. What should be done? What is the solution?
Okay, but Gambakwe, a very good question. I asked you a question. How did we get here? Why are people in the spaces where they are occupying? The solutions, as you ask, is government itself following proper procedural and legal methods to remove people from those spaces. And I also don't want you to constantly focus on only the people who are on the side of the roads. But remember, there are many people in other areas whose houses and even their businesses have been demolished. And remember, during the Mugabe era, during the time of the land barons, which we are all aware, this whole practice was promoted. And we know that people in power, or those who were aspiring, whether to be members of parliament or what have you, have promoted this. And some of them have benefited from the very people whose structures are being demolished. And some of them even councils. And here, when I talk about councils, I'm not absolving anybody. I'm saying some corrupt councillors have pocketed money and giving people spaces in these places. And so the first solution is government should not arbitrarily carry out this process, but let's have a competent court, an impartial court, issue orders which are very clear to say, go and demolish, rather than government doing it, because obviously there is a clear political hand from what I can see. I already told you that during the Mugabe era, this thing was promoted, and you can't separate what is happening today from the past 10 years. And while this was acceptable under the Robert Mugabe era, why should it be unacceptable today? So, in my own opinion, I see a political hand, and I say the first solution is, let's depoliticize this issue first, and then look at the plight of the people who are in poverty, and particularly women and children. Remember, women within this 90% population of the vendors are the ones who are the majority. And women are the ones who always bear the brunt of the actions, of such callous actions of government. And I would say, government at this stage, if it is, because this is a new dispensation, if it is really a government of the people, and if it is really a new dispensation, it should then be able to have a listening ear and say, what are the things at play, and then listen to the people, look at case by case, and then, if possible, try to create other options for those people that are being evicted, to say, if we are removing these people who are making a living here, where are we putting them? Rather than just callously destroying those structures and businesses of people who are trying to really make a living.
Okay. How is the impact of having this disorder in Zimbabwe in vending? I remember some time I went to Harare and people were vending right in front of Eastgate. What is the impact on business, on form of business, of such actions? And you said I mustn't look only on the side of the vendors. Let's switch it. Let's say you were the mayor of Harare. Would you allow the situation that is there right now?
Look, this is exactly where I say that question cannot arise now. It is difficult for us to answer that question now without addressing what got us here. I am saying, yes, in a properly functional economy, a properly functional government, where these issues have not been politicized, it is easy to say, why, let's remove the people from where they are. But I have just alluded to the fact that this problem started even with a current government, a previous government, a previous ZANU-PF government, who has current serving officials who presided over this whole process. And if you are going to ask me about the impact of what is happening today, I would ask you, what is the impact of a dysfunctional economy? What is the impact of an economy that does not have formal employment? What is the impact of an economy that cannot provide a decent living for a general human being? What is the impact of the current economic policies that we are having? That is the question to ask, and that once you do that, I could be able to answer. But here we are dealing with symptoms of a problem that is in existence, and it is clear for everybody to see that the majority of Zimbabweans are in dire need of a livelihood, of a sustainable livelihood. And currently what we see with people vending on the sides of the road or wherever they are, it is a symptom, except if we think that addressing a symptom is addressing the real problem, then it is the fallacy, or it will be a fallacy of whether this discussion or of those who are trying to solve this issue by demolishing where people are making livelihoods.
I want also to pose another question to you, and I want to give you an example.
Yes.
Prophet Tfreddie, he had built his church on I think a car park, and he knew very well that this was not allowed. Is this not something that is happening, that people in Harare, they are disobeying the rules, and knowing full well that you cannot just go at the side of the road and fence up and put your cars there, or go to Mbuzi and just put your tuck shop, or go to Cranbourne and build on someone else's land? Because we need to look at both sides. Are the people in Harare obeying the rules?
Gamba,
or tomorrow, we'll go back to Mbudzi, and someone whose store was crashed, we find them again on the same spot.
Gamba, I like your questioning. You know, you have this liking of picking one example and trying to universalize it, and trying to use it as you know, an example of what is happening out there. I don't want to comment about the prophet you talked about, Tfreddie. I know I've seen what happened there. He had his own. I saw him, in fact, giving his own reasons as to how the council had allowed him to do that. I don't want to get into that. But look here, Gambako, I want us to look at the bigger picture, which I am trying to pose to you, that the majority of Zimbabweans whose structures today are being destroyed, whose informal businesses are being destroyed, are not there because they are naturally lawbreakers. They are not there naturally because they just want to anger the councils or the government. They are there because of a situation that has been prevailing in the country, if you like, for the past 2 decades, and at the present moment, which has, you know, which has really budded. Without repeating what we have said, I've really shown you that there is a humanitarian crisis. There is a poverty crisis in Zimbabwe. There is a crisis which needs a true leadership, which needs leadership which will not only go to punish people who are doing this. Probably let me take another view of things. I have, at the beginning of our discussion, told you that the urban areas, and particularly Harare, has shown over the past elections that it is pro-opposition. And it is not surprising that what is happening in the bigger picture, you can look at it and see that it is something to do with realigning electoral dynamics there. And there is no doubt about it, from my view. One can dispute that.
How come in Bulawayo they don't build on the roads? They don't put they can sell on the road, but you don't see them building with impunity on the side of the roads. Mashingo, Gweru, all these places. I haven't seen them building the way the people in Harare do.
The Battle of Harare, man. Harare is the capital. Harare is the capital, and like I've already told you, that this whole disaster or crisis we are in started during the Robert Mugabe era, in which there was need to realign the electoral dynamics, as I have said, to neutralize the MDC there. And we saw land barons sprouting. We saw this whole thing of people building everywhere coming up. And it has developed over time. And remember, if you win Harare, imagine you are a ruling party and you do not control councils within the capital. Basically, the tag of illegitimacy holds. So
no, but I want to hold you. I want to hold you better.
Let me finish. Let me finish.
No, you're making an untrue statement, so I need to hold you.
Which
that's not
statement?
True. In South Africa, the ANC does not control. Well, until recently, they did not control Johannesburg and Pretoria. That did not make them illegitimate.
No,
the DA and EFF had a coalition which was running these two cities.
No, but look here, you are giving, you are really making a comparison of oil and water. In South Africa, there is totally a different electoral field there in which the winner and the loser, they accept. And I think over the years, we have not seen any contestation, any electoral contestation in those cities. If it was an ANC that did not do well in the capital, they lost, and you have never heard them making a noise. Here we are talking of the Zimbabwean situation, the Zimbabwean circumstance where elections have been contested, and we know very well that the demolitions, I've taken you back to 2005, up till now, that they have had a what do you call it? They've had a set of agenda that you can really tell that it's either pro-opposition people are being punished, or there is an attempt to realign electoral dynamics within a city. So what I was saying is that in Bulawayo, basically, you know, you can't compare it with Harare, because for the authorities, I'm very sure the authorities in Harare, they really want to neutralize Harare and make sure that they have some gains there. And all that is happening, from my point of view, if it was a government of the people, if it was a new dispensation, it should have been having a little bit of compassion and empathy on the people, because look, there are people whose goods are just destroyed there. There are people whose properties, the little things that they are trying to make with their own hands without necessarily being criminals, they are being destroyed out there. And a listening government, a government that wants to introduce a new dispensation of politics, should create alternatives and say, hey, people, this is not on. We need to create a clean city. Here is a space we are preparing for you. How about just destroying? Where are these people going to go? This is an attack not only on the economic attempts of people, but on the moral fabric, because what are you making these people? Tomorrow, these people are going to be criminals, hardcore criminals, to try to make a living out there. And who are you going to blame? So for me, if you ask, I would say the solution is not necessarily a very cohesive and destructive approach, but an approach of a new dispensation government, which we have all said, if you are a new dispensation, then give people a proper alternative and let people vote you on your merits.
Okay, I've got a disagreement with you on a statement that you made, that the elections in Zimbabwe are contested. I want to say, ever since MDC started winning the cities, the ZANU-PF government has never rejected or contested the results in the cities. Even Chamisa did not contest the results of the MPs and the councillors. He only contested the presidential election. So I don't think that argument holds, that there's a contestation of the elections. I think this is just a statement that people are making without looking deeper. Do we not have a deeper problem in Zimbabwe of disorder and lawlessness, and then hiding behind politics? The councillors of the MDC, are they not the ones causing the problem?
Okay, Gambakwe, you are tempting me to, by trying to divert me to an electoral issue, the issue of electoral contestation, in which you are saying in Harare there's never been a contestation. I mean, you must know that when you are in power, those tactics in which you know that after, you know, delimitation, you know that the majority of the population is in rural areas, and obviously in rural areas, that's where the contestation has to be. In urban areas, it is a foregone conclusion that here are the people who are largely labor, students, and those who if you like, I don't want to say raw, people are not enlightened, but more enlightened about policy. And you can tell where the contestation is. So obviously, when you are in power, you make sure that whatever you do in terms of manipulating is in the area where you stand a chance. But I don't want to go into that argument. But your question as to are MDC councillors not involved in all this? I am not absolving anybody. In 2010, we saw Morgan Tsvangirai literally firing a whole Chitungwiza council because of corruption. And at that time, I think corruption was already setting in. And in Zimbabwe today, corruption is no longer to be looked at on political lines, because the total fabric, economic fabric, social fabric, moral fabric has been attacked because people's livelihoods have been destroyed. And I don't want to sit here and say I'm absolving the MDC and accusing those in the ZANU-PF, but there is one point that we have to make here. It is that the whole issue of devolution, of decentralization has not been handled properly. And as much as MDC can hold seats in the urban councils, they do not have control. They do not have they do not hold the levers of making decisions as to what happens there. So in that regard, you can be lenient on them to say, you know, they do not control the budget there. They do not control their
but
they
doctor,
do not make the final decisions. And you know, I'm telling the truth. I also don't want you to push a narrative. And you know that what I'm saying
okay,
is soft.
I'm saying when someone goes and builds at the wrong place, there's a municipal police who is supposed to be maintaining order so that the person does not build. At Mbudzi, there are official stands for selling. So if someone puts an illegal stand, that should be clear within 1 month that someone has put the illegal stand, it must be removed. If someone builds a road, a car cells along the road, it should be known by the municipal police within the first month. If someone builds on a car park or on someone else's stand, this should be known. Why is it taking to the point where someone has already constructed an expensive property for them to then come and demolish? What is going wrong with the process of checking?
Gambakwe, today we could be sitting here in the studio and discussing this. There are people out there in power who are collecting and pocketing money. These people that we think are just sprouting like mushrooms in those places, you will be shocked that they are not just doing it by themselves. They are paying somebody. They are paying people. But let's ask the question, who are they paying to be there? And these are not people who occupied these places a week ago. These are people who have been there, like I've already traced this whole issue from the last 10 years. Okay, to be lenient, the past 5 years. Why hasn't this blitz been on since 2017? Why is it coming now, only 2 years away from a very crucial election? So, Gambakwe, in as much as you make an important point that illegality cannot be condoned, the important and crucial question we should ask ourselves is, how did we come to be here? And what is the fundamental problem that is causing people to be where they are today? Zimbabwe, I've said, is a vending economy. It has been forced to be there. There is no employment in the formal sector. How do you expect people to survive today?
I want to separate the issues. Mm-hmm. So there are many reasons why Zimbabwe's economy is not working. Okay. And one of the reasons which I want to give you is obviously the issue of sanctions. there is no one in the MDC or in ZANU-PF who does not admit that the sanctions are causing a massive problem in Zimbabwe. If we were to remove sanctions from Zimbabwe today, the economy of Zimbabwe will recover. Then we go to the issue of how did we come to be where we are now? It's clear what has happened. There's a political issue in Zimbabwe. But the people who control the councils, they are MDC, they are the opposition. They've got total control there in terms of who can do what. If you go right now to City Council and park in the wrong spot, you are going to get claimed. And you're going to be paying, I think, $300 to $500. Why is it not the same that if someone builds on the wrong spot, they are immediately fined and they are removed from there?
Okay, Gambakwe, you know, I like your questioning, and I like the way you want to direct me into these issues that you raise. The first one you raise is that of sanctions. I think this has been this is an issue that, I mean, we will be flogging a dead horse, because I remember very well when the current president got into power with so much support and so much goodwill, he had said, you know, blaming sanctions, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, is sort of, you know, trying to just give an excuse. We are going to build this country with sanctions or without sanctions, right? That issue, even Mr. Mutrangwa, I remember that he said something to that effect, in which he even condemned those within the Mugabe administration who were accusing sanctions for this. But again, from the other side, you have heard a lot of talk about what the real sanctions in Zimbabwe are. Because if we talk of sanctions, we are talking of things that are stopping development finance to come into the country. Let's look at the issues of human rights abuse. Let's look at the economic environment suitable for investment to come here. Do we have the right policies to bring in investment so that we can create employment for these vendors that we are talking about? Let's talk about the day-to-day, I mean, the corruption that we have seen happening, I mean, which has been reported all over the place. Whether you want to talk of the COVID corruption, you want to talk of the corruption of the minerals, I mean, this is in the public domain. And if you are going to talk to me about sanctions, if you are going to talk to the young person about sanctions, what really are you talking about? If we ourselves cannot solve the issues which are within our own hands. So that issue, it's a flogged horse. And in fact, it is a political game. It is political talk, which I don't want to engage with you right now and say whether sanctions are bad, sanctions are what. But look here, Zimbabweans, starting with the current government, it is within their own hands to clean the house. Then you are talking about, again, in the urban councils that, look, the MDC, you are the one who is accusing that they are clamping cars and stuff like that. You must understand that a council, for it to survive, they must have ways to raise revenue, and within a constricted environment such as Zimbabwe, how do you expect a council that does not control the levers of finance, the levers of power to operate? And I think if we want to have an honest discussion, we have to have a discussion about the reformation of our Urban Councils Act. We have to have a discussion about what we as Zimbabweans have to do in order to open up our economy for investment without accusing others for stopping us to have that investment. That is an honest conversation that we can have. Kambako.
Okay, you know what I think, Doc?
Yes.
I think most Zimbabweans, they don't understand what is happening around them.
Oh.
In South Africa, today, as I speak, there's a province called the Northwest.
Yes.
A number of councils have collapsed due to mismanagement. As I speak today, they are failing to provide services. The reason is not because the environment is not enabling. It's just mismanagement and corruption within the council. I think the Harare City Council is the most rotten city council in Zimbabwe. If you look at the corruption to do with the residential stands, where they were buying residential stands in bond notes, especially involving the councillors who were arrested. And then you look at the lack of service delivery in Harare, failing to collect refuse, failing to provide services. Water has not been flowing in Harare for a long time. They have been people have been drinking from boreholes, which are dug by NGOs in Harare for a very, very long time. And I think we need to address the issue of mismanagement within the Harare City Council and failure to control the council by the MDC. The MDC has not done a good job. And this is something that people, because of politics, they tend to run away from. The people that are in the MDC, they do lack experience in running councils.
Gambako, you must ask me a question. Stop lecturing me.
No, I want to give you I want to give you a background. Then yes. I want to ask you a question. Because you are saying the government is to blame for the situation in Harare. Are these factors not important? The fact that the people who are councillors, they're just coming from the streets with no experience. For example, I want to give you the example of the guy from Avondale who was a gardener and was elected as a councillor. Is the MDC vetting who gets into council?
Okay, Gambakwe, excitingly, you raise some passionate issues. I mean, very, very serious issues, particularly where you talk about lack of running water, where you talk about that the people are using water from boreholes, and I could add and say sewerage, flowing on the surface, and a whole lot of those things. And yes, it's true, we have seen it. But I want us to, I've begged for an honest discussion on this. You try in your initial statement in this question that you compare the Northwest with Harare. You must understand that the politics of South Africa is totally different from the politics in Zimbabwe. Firstly, I'll tell you that the politics in South Africa, as we have known, it has been about, from what we get from the news, it has been about state capture. That's what is in South Africa. Who gets into power so that they can get the cherry? They can get to benefit, and that's what we know. And that is a different politics in South Africa, which the South Africans can deal with by themselves. And these are people we have been voted, and we have the power in their hands to control those councils. Come back home to Zimbabwe. It's a totally different scenario. A very polarized political environment, in which the central government has the total say in terms of what happens in councils. Talk about procurement. You are talking about lack of running water. Who is the final signatory in terms of procurement for whatever is needed to clean the water, to fix the sewerage, to fix the refuse collection, to fix the service delivery, the renovation of roads? Who has the final say for that? Who provides that funding? when you look at that and realize that it is the central government that has got the responsibility, and they know that they can play politics, and I really wish the MDC can find a strategy to come out of this conundrum, because they have also helped themselves to be, to be accused, because they run the council now. Everybody says you are running the council, but they are just like a toothless bulldog within the council, because they cannot make binding decisions. But if we are to have an honest discussion as Zimbabweans, and if we want every Zimbabwean to have a dignified livelihood, then let's discuss those issues to say, what should central government do, or what reforms do we need to make within the Urban Councils Act in order to make sure that those who run the councils are totally responsible for what they do and what they do not do. But today, Gambako, I don't want us to sit here and be dishonest again and think that, and play the politics of the day, when we know where power lies and who really controls these councils.
Okay, let's answer this question and end with this question. What is wrong with an individual who is a gardener to be voted a councillor? Do you agree that a gardener should be a councillor in Avondale?
Firstly, it is the right of every Zimbabwean to be to seek for office, and remember, in any parliamentary democracy or in a democratic country like ours, it is vested in the people to vote for whoever they want. And I don't necessarily think that it is one's qualifications, academic qualifications, that make them a good leader. They are good leaders. I mean, they are very educated people, some who had 14 degrees, some who had a lot and were presidents in our country, and they ran down the country. There are people who in other countries did not have any academic qualifications, who have proved to be good leaders. And we have chiefs in the rural areas. Let's talk of chiefs in rural areas. Let's talk of our traditional setup, in which we have got some rural constituencies, rural spaces which are properly run. And some of these chiefs have not even gone to school. So let's not necessarily try to confuse things here. If people have chosen a gardener to be their leader, it is their wisdom. I don't want to think is their lack of it, that they've put that person there. And it is not necessarily that the person who is voted as a councillor is the one who is going to do the job of bringing water. It could be the wisdom of them bringing people around them who would help them to run those councils. So I don't want us to boggle ourselves down to the caliber of the person that is voted into power. Otherwise, everybody in Zimbabwe today, I mean, if we're to go one by one, we would realize that there are some who probably came straight away from the liberation war and went into the echelons of power, and the results are there for everybody to see. So Gambakwe, that argument, I don't want really to engage in it.
Yeah, you know, Doc, when I listen to you, I can see that you do not know the MDC.
Okay.
The MDC, I spent a lot of time with them.
Okay.
During the previous campaign.
Yes.
Their process is horrible of selecting candidates. And what you're harvesting now in Harare is that process, that rotten process in the MDC of selecting candidates. If you want a world-class city in Harare, you first of all have to reform the MDC. The MDC has some of the worst councillors ever. Let me give you an example of a councillor that is totally a rotten councillor, and he was at the center of the stands scam. He got about 50 residential stands in corrupt deals. And I think that was Danford Ngadzwari. The guy, he did not even have an O-level certificate. He had to forge the O-level certificate to go into university. And I think the Catholic University, they had to censor him or to punish him for that behavior. The caliber of councillor that we have in Harare, I think it's partly to blame for the problems that we have in Harare. This attitude to say, let us just have whoever people vote without setting a bar. To say, if you want to be a councillor, you must have some sort of experience in running a council. You must have some sort of management experience. You must be someone that we can say you have done something in life. I think this is where you end up with dealers, corrupt politicians, all these people that we're seeing. And because they can talk, they confuse people with politics. I do not think the problem in Harare is politics. And I'm surprised that you take it as a political issue, that you can just appoint anyone into council.
No, Gambakwe, I actually take pride. I take pride in your the accusation that you have just made that I don't know MDC. And true, I don't know MDC because I've never been a member of it. And what the analysis that I'm just putting out there is of the reality. You choose, of course, to center around the council, but one could say go up a notch higher to central government. It's easy to accuse councils of everything that you have said, of people that listen. I don't condone any corrupt person, whether you are in this political party or in the other political party, a political party that many people sympathize with or whatever. If you are corrupt, you are corrupt, and you don't deserve that office that you hold, whether you are MDC or you are ZANU-PF. That, as a Zimbabwean, I can clearly say. But when you give a comparison of the councils, the way they are run, I'll put it back to you to say, what then is the best that is coming from the central government that you can say, look, as opposed to what the central government is doing, which probably is employment creation, poverty eradication, infrastructural development, and all the stuff that they are supposed to do. What is it that they are doing, which you are saying those who are in the council, who are largely MDC, are not doing? Are you not in a contradiction that you are choosing to attack the hare and leaving the elephant? Because you probably are scared of the elephant. I am saying the general economy of Zimbabwe today has not provided people with employment, hence people sprouting all over the place, and today their properties are being demolished. I am saying today the generality of the people of Zimbabwe are living in abject poverty. Who is responsible for that? Is it a councillor? Is it not the job of the central government? I am saying today, because of the corruption, of the looting that is in the public domain, the resources that were supposed to benefit the general people have not come down to them. Are we going to blame the councillor for that? So, Gambakwe, I know that it is easy to politicize the economic issues, the poverty issues in Zimbabwe, the lack of service delivery in Zimbabwe on partisan basis. But let's look at it as Zimbabweans and be honest about it. And let's come to a discussion as to what can the current ZANU-PF government do? What can the MDC do? I'm not saying MDC are angels. They are not. If you are talking about those corrupt councillors, definitely the leadership in MDC should make sure that they take action. But are we doing the same with ZANU-PF? Are we doing the same, or are there rules for others and rules for some and rules for others. So this whole discussion, it has to be put into proper context. Gambakwe.
Okay. I want us to bring this to an end. It's a very emotional topic to me.
Yes.
Because I don't like it when people get hoodwinked or get wool pulled over their eyes. The MDC controls 27 councils.
Yep.
And they are the opposition party. I would have expected to see what happened when Zuri came into office. I moved to Harare myself in 2001, September. And that was just the time that Elias Nzuri was elected into office. And Harare transformed. The roads were beautiful. The lights were working. It was a pride to walk in Harare. It was clean. It was interesting. I went to South Africa. I moved to South Africa in 2006. And in 2008, I went back to Harare. There was people selling goats in front of Eastgate. I could not forget the sight of someone selling chickens and goats in front of Eastgate. The disorder that was in Harare, and that has come to Harare as we speak. Right now, if you drive in Harare at night, you could die because you can't see where you're going. The lights are not working. Everything's not working. People are building wherever they want, including in unserviced spaces. In Chitungwiza, there's even a guy who built at the center of the road. And this is all in councils where the MDC, the opposition, is running. Imagine if they take over the whole country. We need to hold them to a higher standard and stop this thing of saying the central government is the one in charge. Why can't they mobilize resources if it's really the government that is the problem?
You know, Gambakwe, I don't. For me, normally, I don't want to discuss issues from the perspective of what they are now, without looking back into perspective to say, how did we? You are talking. I don't want you to talk of Mudzuri as an angel during his time, but you must understand that that's when the problem started. 2000, MDC shocked the current administration by winning 57 seats. I think, was it to 63 or something like that? And it was a shock. I mean, it really turned our political landscape. And from then on, of course, we saw the mayors such as Mudzuri, who at that time had quite a very conducive environment in terms of the Urban Act itself. But from that point, when ZANU-PF realized that, look, the MDC is gaining traction in the urban cities, that's when the sustained constriction of space within urban areas started. We started to see the Minister of Local Government being given more power to make decisions within urban councils. Elias Mudzuri basically worked within a period which I could say, in terms of the Urban Councils Act, it was still, you know, quite easy for him to work through. Remember that. I don't want you to forget that. And ever since they realized that, no, this would give the MDC more power, that's when we saw the minister getting more power and becoming more powerful, even making decisions on behalf of the MDC. And that should not be forgotten by your viewers and yourself. And so the point still remains that there is need for a discussion as to the polarization of our politics. As long as there is that divide that this is MDC, this is ZANU-PF, there is always be that that tension in which, where two elephants are fighting, it is the grass that suffers. And that is exactly what is happening today. That ZANU-PF would always want to prove that MDC is failing, and MDC will always try to prove that we can fight ZANU-PF, and in the end, it is the people who do not get the services that they require. So, Gambakwe, this conversation in itself, it needs to be reconfigured to say, what are the exact things that need to be done without accusing, without getting into a polarized environment that we are already in.
Okay, so Doc, let's do exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
If I was in council, what I would do, obviously, I would demolish all these illegal structures. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, I'll make sure nobody ever comes back to build an illegal structure. I'll make sure the Harare,
how would you do that? How would you
the
do
Harare
that?
Metro Police, they've got a right to write tickets, to find people, to remove structures. The same way they can claim vehicles.
Kambakwe, can I stop you there? Can I just stop you there? It is that mentality of using coercive power, the mentality of using that absolute power to stop people, that is wrong about everything in Zimbabwe. What we seek today is to look at a government or a leadership that is more empathetic, a government that is more, pro-people. Instead of looking at the wrongs of the people, it looks at what we can do for the people to right what is wrong. So, once again, I come back to you and say, Gambakwe, this conversation, we need to reconfigure. And starting with, by the way, I respect your platform. This is the conversations which we should start. What should ZANU-PF start doing? What should MDC start doing?
So okay, I was still going because Doc, no. I want to give you what I would do.
Yes.
So I would demolish the structures. I'll make sure you don't come back. Then I'll put in place designated places for people to trade. That is lacking in Harare. And then obviously I'll charge commercial rates. Remember that when they crashed Mbare, they said they'll move people to a certain place. I would want to see that working. I want to see a clean place where people can sell. Also, I would put people online. So, like the Harare Metro, they do not have free Wi-Fi. If you come here, all the cities have free Wi-Fi. I would put a program in place for people to start trading online. They have a specific program here in Pretoria for that kind of thing, where everyone gets free Wi-Fi so that you don't have to stand on the side of the road and sell your car. I agree with you that there's an economic problem in Zimbabwe. I'm sympathetic to the people. However, I do not agree with disorder. You stay in Botswana, you know how clean Francistown and Gaborone. You won't dare to just go on the side of the road and set up your little thing there. You will be removed within the hour, and you know this is true.
No, but listen, you are making an argument on totally, diametrically different examples. Yes, you are in South Africa, and I'll give you an example of Botswana. In fact, in Botswana, when the current president came into power, he literally proclaimed that we are allowing backyard industries to operate. But tell you what, it's so orderly. You know why that is so? It's because there is an economy that is functional. There is an economy which can make a general person wake up in the morning, go buy bread, come have some food, go buy some meal, have their sadza and eat and have a meal without thinking of the politics of the day. And when you want to, you are talking about whatever you would set up Wi-Fi and stuff like that. Zimbabwe is in a huge currency crisis in which it is very difficult to get a hold of any financing. And how you will do that, I wonder. And that's what I'm saying, that in Zimbabwe, we can have the best strategies, of what to do. We can have the best ideals. What you are saying is, I think it's dreamland. It's an old man dreaming, suckling from their mother's breast, because the economy is not functional, Gambakwe. And all those things you are saying, those are the normal things that any normal human being would say if things were normal. If a government could set up facilities and systems that make a living much more bearable. Not when you wake up and you do not know whether you have a morning meal or even the evening meal for your child. Not when a woman who is selling as a vendor out there doesn't know whether they will even sell one bundle of murio to feed their child. Not when a woman doesn't even know whether they will come back home to a functional family. Look here, this is the discussion that people should have. This whole polarized and political discussion in which we play the blame game between MDC and ZANU-PF is not working, and I wish our leadership in Zimbabwe can wake up and say what they said in 2017 when they said this is a new dispensation, and we see the opening up of the space. It starts with opening up with the rights of people to speak out without fear. It starts with people being able to demonstrate to their government and tell them what, and it also comes with government listening without beating people, without shambuking old women and stuff like that. I mean, those are the most important things, Gambakwe, we should talk about if we want to be serious. It comes with not even brandishing our own opposition, because opposition in any country is good. Brandishing them as terrorists, that is fear-mongering, is scaremongering, and everybody lives in fear, and the polarity goes on and on and on. So, Gambakwe, my plea to you actually is that as we go on, let's have a conversation that builds up some sort of unity, some sort of understanding to say, I know we can accuse each other. MDC has its wrongs, but ZANU-PF has its own. I believe ZANU-PF has something that is right about them, the same as MDC. But the talk in Zimbabwe is so toxic that it's either you are ZANU-PF or you are MDC. Either you are an enemy or you are a friend. That is what it is. And I think as Zimbabweans, we need to get out of that kind of talk. And it is tiring. For some of us, for the past 20 years, we have been hoping. And there is nothing as painful as hope. But hope, again, is what it is. It keeps you moving on and on. Because when you hope, you expect that things will get better. And we want things to get better in Zimbabwe.
Okay, Dr. Feddious Mutenheri, and that is my own caption, doctor. You'll be a doctor very soon, within the next 2 months. And I want us to discuss your paper. In fact, I would want to know what it is that you're presenting to the world. I know that a doctor has to bring new knowledge, and I'll be very interested in that. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
No, Gambakwe, probably to just emphasize on our discussions. I'm very happy that you invite me to this platform and that we have these conversations. And definitely, I will tell you, Gambakwe, that this is a platform in which people watch, they listen, in as much as we may not see them registering as views, but they listen. But you as I've watched you for a long time, you as a journalist, I want you to realize that you are a role model to a lot of people. People who like you and those who do not like you, they will judge you on the product you bring. But where we are now, as a generation of younger people, we need to promote that conversation which will transform Zimbabwe to a better place. We are tired. Most Zimbabweans, I can speak authoritatively that most Zimbabweans out here are tired. They are exhausted mentally, they are exhausted emotionally, they are exhausted physically by what is happening in Zimbabwe. When they see and hear reports of looting, of polarity, of violence, of whatever kind of vile that comes of the country. They are tired. And I can tell you, even people in Zimbabwe, because that's where we live, they are tired. What they want to see is a new conversation. What they want to see is a new discussion, is a discussion by leaders which is not crookish, but an honest one in which we can come together and say, how do we build our once beautiful nation into a power again, which can accommodate its people out there who are so industrious, so honest, most of them. And that is the discussion, Gambakwe, I would ask you to bring to your platform. And with me, we are going to continue to have such a discussion here. And thank you very much for inviting me tonight. And I hope to be meeting you in the coming week.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And thank you to everyone who's watching from home. We'll be back again next week with my good doctor, Feddious Mutenheri. Thank you very much. And I must say, I really feel challenged by this discussion because I've got such strong views about the Harare City Council. And I think we should do that again. We should have this discussion again after a year and see what has changed. Because I think the government here, they could do much more. They could clean up that place and take credit for it.
And you know what, one thing before you close, Gambakwe, I like it because every time we go on air, you always tell me, let's do 10 minutes. 10 minutes and 15 minutes. Look where we are. I like it because at least I challenge you, which is fine, yes, because it's a good discussion. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much and good night to everyone.
Good night to you.
Kuno, abo, pano, mamu